Welcome to the huge Manchester United managerial debate. It's been in the papers for absolutely ages. People seem to be sure that Louis van Gaal is going to leave his post as manager of Manchester United. So if we're going to agree at the start of this that that's a fact, that's happening, who comes in next? There are only two contenders at the moment. The papers have decided it's Mourinho. They've got their sources. Looks like it could be him. If it isn't, then it will almost certainly be Ryan Giggs. So we are going to discuss and try to come to a collective decision as to who we think that man should be.
We're making a decision today, Sam.
Well, it won't necessarily be. I like to think that Ed Woodward watches these.
He definitely
and
does.
makes some good decisions. So we'll start with man management.
Can we go to Greg first?
Yeah, Greg, man management.
Yeah, go
I'll
Greg.
get from all,
he knows what he's talking
from
about.
all of you, shall we go for a man management, Mourinho first, and then we'll do Giggs after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so Mourinho, the man manager, I think he obviously gets players up to a level where they can then win many things. But the question with Mourinho has always been whether he can maintain that level. And I think his man management has been shown up at most clubs he's been to in terms of keeping that intensity going as long as someone like Fergie did. I mean, Fergie's the master, right? What did Roy Keane say? Every single team talk, he brought something different. He always found a way to mix it up. Whereas Mourinho, he seems to have this 3-year cycle that kicks in. It's partly a morale thing, it's partly a tactical thing, but it does come down to how he can motivate players as well. I think Giggs, on the other hand, he's Van Gaal's link to the dressing room, and he's doing a great job at the moment by the looks of it, keeping everyone on side. Okay, we're not doing as well as we should be under Van Gaal, but it seems as though Giggs done his job well in terms of, being kind of the player's guy in the dressing room. A bit like how Mike Phelan used to be for Fergie.
Okay, Adam, you're sat right here.
Yes, I'm in the house. Basically,
Never do that again.
Before I talk about man management and all that,
Which
I'd
is the
just like to
question.
say I used to be someone that was staunchly against José Mourinho becoming Manchester United manager. For a lot of the reasons that I'm still against him becoming Manchester United manager, but as it stands, I think Mourinho is the best choice because we're in a position where we can't really take any risk on this next appointment. Moyes was a big risk. Louis van Gaal was supposed to be the one that worked regardless, hasn't really done that. And now the next appointment has to be spot on, otherwise we risk falling behind everybody else. So that's why I think Mourinho is the best guy. He does have his setbacks though, man management being one of them. On one hand, he can make players think he's the best manager in the world and they want to play for nobody but José Mourinho. And I think that's been the case with a lot of his players. But at the same time, he has that ability to piss players off, much like Sir Alex Ferguson did, and make players not feel comfortable at the club or want to leave. So the big thing for me is how he manages the younger players coming through.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, sorry, Sam. Stepping on your toes on that.
And Howson, Gaz, before you jump in and tell us whether or not you think Mourinho or Giggs should be manager, how about wait to the end of the video? And we'll discuss the points, and then we'll get there.
Oh, we make the decision at the end.
We're
Yes!
going to have an open debate in which we're all open-minded about either option, and then we sort of come to a conclusion at the end based on what other people have said. Our own opinions might have changed. We might have learnt a little something. It's exciting. So maybe Adam will change his mind just yet. Gaz.
Yes.
Man management. Giggs and Mourinho. Please weigh in.
So I think this is actually probably one of the few arguments why Jose Mourinho shouldn't be Man United manager, because when all's going well in Mourinho teams, it's brilliant and he's keeping all the players happy, but it's when the team goes through a rough period that he struggles to get them back on side if they've maybe started to have their doubts about him. And to be honest, next season I do think it's going to be tough for Man United no matter who we appoint. I just can't see us, and I don't want to sound too negative, but I just can't see us winning the Premier League next season. I can see us being near the top, but I can't see us winning it. I think it's going to take more than one summer to fix the squad, and I think it's going to be a real struggle. And maybe, if it's getting to the point where we're outside the top four, coming into the new year, coming into 2017 with Jose as manager, then I think some of the players may have the questions, and I think that I don't think he's the type of guy who's able to get players back on side once they've fallen out with him.
Okay, Howson. We all know you famously wanted Guardiola as manager. I hope you finally got over that and can get involved in the Giggs Mourinho debate.
Oh my God, Sam, we need to have a word. You saying that is going to make people believe that. You know that, don't you?
I know. Hopefully they'll appreciate it's a joke, because we all laugh.
Jose Mourinho. I think he divides dressing rooms. And on one side, you're going to have the players who are for him, and then the other side, the players who are against him that he doesn't like, and they're never going to have a future at the club. See one matter, regardless of how good they are, they're not going to get in there. he seems like a very abrasive character, and all the best managers seem to be like that. Louis van Gaal is a very abrasive manager. Sir Alex Ferguson was a very abrasive manager. Love him, but as soon as you cross him, that's you, and you're absolutely finished. You're not coming back into the team. With Ryan Giggs, I've got to disagree with what Greg said, because I don't think there's any evidence that Ryan Giggs is becoming this link between the dressing room and the manager at the moment. We didn't see it under Moyes with Ryan Giggs. Ryan Giggs almost seems like this third party that's just sort of floating around the club at the moment. He doesn't seem a direct link from the manager to the players. He doesn't look like he's connected to the management. Doesn't look like he's connected to the players. So I don't think we can definitively say either of them have got great man management skills. Mourinho's going to come in and divide. There'll be players that are forced out, and I don't necessarily think that Mata would be one of them. I think he chose Oscar over Mata at Chelsea, and I don't think we've got the options to do that here. So he might still keep hold of Mata. They might have a little cuddle and make up. Ryan Giggs, I think the jury's still out, as is a lot of things on Ryan Giggs at the moment. We've got no evidence that his man management is any good whatsoever.
That's the thing.
Okay.
That's why I didn't speak about Ryan Giggs too much, because we don't really know. I mean, we can go off stuff that maybe he did as a player when he's putting his arm around the youngsters and helping out the youngsters on the training ground at the minute. But is that actually going to apply when he's the full-on manager in charge of the whole shebang? No one knows.
I will say, actually, though, I read an article yesterday from Jesse Lingard and Rashford both said that Ryan Giggs and Nicky Butt are dropping in little bits of hints of help here and there. So I think that is worth mentioning.
Memphis Depay also came out, didn't he, and said Ryan Giggs spoke to him and has helped him a lot settle in England.
I think it's different as a coach.
That's what I mean. Let's hope he's like that as a
coach. As a coach, you're not making the team selection decisions. You're not dropping people to the bench. You're not, maybe not playing someone for a few weeks. And whereas some players don't know where they stand with Louis van Gaal, I think Ryan Giggs may pick up that side of things that Sir Alex Ferguson had, whereas he'd foresee down 2 or 3 games' time and maybe tell some of his sub-players, you'll play soon. Pick up little things from Sir Alex, but I don't think you can say until he's in that position, because as a coach, yeah, they could love him, but until he becomes that manager making those ball-busting decisions.
But we saw him do it, didn't we? In the 4 games that he was in charge, he was willing to take out big names and play people like Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, that's
gave James Wilson his debut.
Play for, though, wasn't it? There was nothing to play for then.
Well, we've got nothing to play for.
A Europa League place. I think we'd rather not have the Europa League place, to be honest.
I understand what you're saying, but we can only judge him on what he's done.
The only things you hear from Giggs that Giggs actually does, which you'd say you could judge him upon his management, is he watches the opposition that United play. And you've heard this a number of times over the season from the manager and himself. He watches the opposition. He sees where we can get at them. He writes kind of the game plan kind of thing. So that said, does that say a lot about his management? If he's watching the opposition and then we're still playing like this week in, week out, how much influence has he got on the team? I know I've gone off man management, so maybe I'll save it for later.
Okay, all right. Now we'll discuss experience. Now, I would urge you to consider that both of these men have vast amounts of experience, but obviously in very different ways. Let's consider that Ryan Giggs is the most experienced Manchester United player of all time before we say, well, he's not done any management. Greg?
Or just going first, okay. I think same with the man management side of things. You've got to kind of view their experience in the kind of context of their careers. As you say, Ryan Giggs is the most experienced player in Premier League history. If you look at how many trophies he's won and things like that. So obviously he's going to fall down as the experience of the manager. But I mean, as much as I am, I'd say I'm for Giggs on this side of the debate. I do think you kind of can't argue with the fact that he would be going into his first job as the manager of Man United, and that's just it doesn't make much sense in that degree in terms of experience. Look at everyone says he could be like Guardiola. Guardiola, before he took over at Barcelona, he was managing the youth teams. He went all around the world to speak to the best coaches in Mexico and the United Arab Emirates. He went to Italy for a bit, studied there under some coaches. So I don't think he's done the footwork to kind of get out there and expand his thinking, really. You can only do so much sitting as you're kind of the accomplice to Van Gaal. You need to get out there and get new experiences and kind of, like I say, expand your mind. Mourinho, he's kind of won everything, so his experience it just thrashes Giggs, really.
To play devil's advocate, which is very much my role in this, on the Ryan Giggs experience, I think there's a solid argument for, if you look at the experience of Louis van Gaal even, and David Moyes, both vastly experienced managers, but neither of them had the required experience to manage Manchester United. Neither of them knew quite what to expect, I don't think, about the size of the club and what was expected of them every season, and both of them fell short because of a lack of experience. Now, Ryan Giggs doesn't have managerial experience to anywhere near David Moyes or Louis van Gaal, but what he does know more than perhaps anybody on this earth is how Manchester United as a football club run and how they work, and what makes the team successful, because he's won the Premier League 13 times. Now, I'm not saying that means he would be a great manager, but I do think that there is an argument there that should be considered.
I think that Louis van Gaal did have the desired experience. I mean, when he was appointed Man United manager, there weren't many people complaining about it. I wasn't, for one.
You've obviously not listened to what Sam just said.
What I'm saying is that level of experience hasn't helped him. I'm not saying he didn't have enough experience.
I don't really.
He's certainly got more experience. What I'm saying, guys, is Louis van Gaal has a huge amount of experience, and which everybody in football respects and thinks amazing. What a great CV. But what I'm saying is it hasn't helped him. Yeah. Having been manager of Barcelona and Bayern Munich is brilliant, and you'd think, well, if you'd done those clubs, you could manage Manchester United. But in this case, that hasn't worked. He's found life tough. It hasn't made him go, oh, well, I've done those two giants of football, I can also manage this one. It hasn't helped him, is what I'm saying.
I think that it's because Man United as well aren't really, well, at the minute, I'm not saying in terms of the size of the club, but in terms of the quality of the team, we're not one of the best teams in the world, are we? So I think with Ryan Giggs, it would obviously be in an ideal situation, he'd go off somewhere else and prove himself there, but I think that it's like you say, it's the way that he knows how Man United's run, and then a lot of ex-players are saying that he'd be the best Man United manager just because he knows Man United through and through. But as a manager, really, I think Jose Mourinho would be well up for it, and I think that he would. I think that Jose Mourinho loves Man United. I think he does. I mean, some people have obviously given loads of arguments for why he shouldn't be Man United manager, but I definitely think he'd be willing to change for United, because he's licked our arse in interviews so many times in the past that I just think he'd love it. I think he'd love the chance, and
he'd walk here.
Yeah.
Okay, Howson, Gaz just mentioned Mourinho as, he'd be the ideal candidate. He's got a wealth of experience. Should we be concerned if he was to come in that he would carry on his 3-year cycle?
I think you can only look to people's history to see what they're going to do in the future, and generally people do what they've always done, regardless of the changing in circumstances. I want to pull you up on your point about Giggs knowing how Manchester United runs. He doesn't know how Manchester United runs. He knows how to be a Manchester United player. That's his experience. For nearly 30 years, he was a Manchester United player. He doesn't know.
So are you suggesting that he wouldn't have an insight into how the club works?
I was going to say, yeah.
Not to the
on the
level
inside for 30 years.
Expecting. No, I don't think he does. I think Sir Alex Ferguson kept so many cards close to his chest. Sir Alex Ferguson was doing 4 or 5 different people's jobs, which is what we're finding at the moment. And I think the thing that tempts me about Mourinho is that Mourinho's going to look after the football side of things and get us successful. But it's this rumour that Berta's coming in from Atletico Madrid. That's the one that really tempts me. Because we're going to touch on it in a minute, but I think Mourinho's experience with transfers is awful. Mourinho spent nearly $1 billion and has got a lot of rubbish transfers on his record. But in terms of experience of managing a football team to be successful, I'm just going to read off screen here because I've got some notes on what Mourinho's got in terms of points per game.
There we go.
For every single... This is across his history. So Mourinho's points per game is 2.16. Right, that over a 38-game season leaves you with 82 points. The average needed to win the Premier League is 85 points. So you're challenging just on his average season. Simple as that.
So let's not get him then. We're not going to win the league,
91 and 95 points. So what you're going to get with Mourinho is an extreme winner, but you also have a lot of negative aspects come with that. As a comparison, Sir Alex's points per game was 2.09. Ancelotti's is 2.01. This is across their career. Klopp's is 1.71. So you're getting someone who has proven it, not just in England, not just in Spain, not just in Italy or in Portugal. He's proved it every single place that he's been. He's won European Cups. The guy is going to do one thing for sure, and that is win. Now, the other stuff, it can be debatable, and it's probably still going to happen that he is going to burn the players out. That's something that you hear the players talk about when they work under Mourinho. He demands so much that players come to the end of their life cycle very fast. But you are going to get winning out of Mourinho. That's the only issue I have, is that it's going to be an extremely fast and extremely bright burnout before the eventual inevitable collapse.
Interesting, because there are several Chelsea players, aren't there, that were there from day one with him, that even people like John Terry still at the club, and then there's Drogba, Cech, Lampard, all long-term football players.
There are, yeah, I didn't say it's the 100% guaranteed rule. I'll just say you get a lot of players that get burnt out very fast with him. Not every player, just a lot of players.
Okay, just wanted to put out some examples. Adam, go on. Experience. Mourinho and Giggs, your opinions, your feelings.
Jose's got more experience than Ryan Giggs. I think, look, Jose Mourinho is a winner, as Steve said. The things for me is, the things I've been against about Jose Mourinho is, I think I've read a stat where it said, in his whole time at Chelsea, he never gave an academy player their Premier League debut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those kind of things is what put me off. And then obviously, like, I've looked at the likes of Eden Hazard over the years, Arjen Robben. I've felt he's curbed those kind of naturally gifted flair players, much like Louis van Gaal has done at the moment at Manchester United. So those are the kind of things that I've been against. But then those critics of his football then don't look at the fact that the Real Madrid side outscored Barcelona and scored an awful lot of goals, over 100, etc. So he has his ups and downs, and that's the problem for me. I think he'd be a great success, but then in the long run, we'd ultimately end up as shit. Is there any option for Van Gaal to run the youth and just pass them over to Jose?
The thing is,
like a little conveyor belt, just so we can have the best of both worlds.
That's what he did at Ajax when he went back to there. He didn't go in as manager, he came as like a director of football, and he basically revolutionised their youth setup. And he also wrote the paper that got Holland's youth setup into better shape as well, and brought for a whole other generation of like Robin and Rowan van Persie and that guy. So I'd be well up for that.
I did not know that. You've just given me.
Is that when Johan
knowledge
Cruyff was
there,
manager
Greg.
at Ajax?
No, they got into a massive fight.
I'm writing a letter to Ed Woodward.
I think he'll appreciate it. Okay, right, let's talk about transfers. Now, Ryan Giggs is obviously not a lot we can say on transfers apart from the general rumblings that people like Anthony Martial were brought in specifically for him to manage. I have no idea if that's true. And then Mourinho, there's loads to talk about. So, transfers. Greg?
I think with Giggs, the obvious strength is his knowledge of the academy. Butt's now the head of the academy as well. They're probably going to have a very good working relationship because Butt was also his assistant when he was in charge of the team after Moyes. So I think it's more about the opportunities that will be given to players already at the club under Giggs. And I think, as Adam said as well, that's one of Mourinho's main weaknesses with regards to whether he fits United or not. Because I mean, I would worry about what's going to happen to Rashford and players like that if Mourinho came to United. They just don't seem. Doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't seem like they're going to get the opportunities that their talent deserves to grow. Whereas I could actually see Giggs shipping out someone like Rooney. We keep getting told in the boardroom it's like a three-way split between Ed Woodward going for Van Gaal and his allies, the Glazers and some of those guys want Mourinho. Then you've got Fergie and his kind of like little block who want to bring Giggs and have more of his influence over the club. And obviously Fergie's the guy who tried to sell Rooney as he left the club. So maybe because of that connection with him and Giggs, we might actually see Rooney moved on, Rashford promoted, and players like that given more of a day.
Give Giggs a job then.
Yeah, well, yeah, that for me, that's why I would have Giggs over Mourinho if it is a black and white choice like that. But with Mourinho, I mean, we might get someone like Ibrahimovic, who, I mean, some people are saying he could be like the next Cantona, or is he someone with that kind of imagination, with that presence? He helps the younger kids out. So I agree with Howson as well. I mean, if you get Mourinho in, it's going to burn bright quickly. You're probably going to win stuff, but he might leave your club in an even worse state than he found it. But then look at the kind of players you could bring through. How many of us would want to watch individuals like Zlatan Ibrahimovic playing at Old Trafford? He's just a fantastic player to watch. So it depends what you're looking for, whether it's a short-term fix or a long-term solution. But then at the same time, Giggs hasn't got the experience, so maybe he might take us lower.
I think that Mourinho, he will come in and he will buy big stars. He'll spend a lot of money on big, huge stars, and a lot of people will complain about it because it's not the United way. But apparently we've been having it the United way over the past 3 seasons, and it's not. It's been crap. It's been rubbish. And a lot of people say that the transfers that he'll make, they'll all be looking to the short term, and people will want a long term. And I'm thinking, do we really need to plan for the long term straight away now with the mess that we're in. I think our first priority should just be getting us out of this absolute crap mid-table quality squad that we've got at the minute, because I genuinely believe that. I genuinely don't think there's a hell of a lot more you can do with the players we've got. Yeah, we should be doing a bit better. We should be getting top 4, but it's nowhere near a Premier League title challenging squad. I think Jose will come in, make big signings, maybe 4 older players like Zlatan Ibrahimovic who only have 2, maybe 3 years left in him. But for me, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I do think that Ryan Giggs will be Man United manager one day. I just don't think he's ready yet. Maybe in 3 years, maybe in 5 years, working under another manager like Jose Mourinho, we can continue to learn things like that. Greg, you mentioned before about Pep travelling to other places to learn. If Giggs can do that sort of thing over the next 5 years and then come in and take over Man United, then that's absolutely fantastic. But as a short term, I'm quite happy with Jose in the middle of that. I mean, how long was he Real Madrid manager for? That was about 4 years, wasn't it? 5 years?
Mate, you don't get the Real Madrid job for longer than a year or 2.
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly.
Nobody
That's what
does.
I mean. That's what I mean. 4 years.
Than most,
4 years.
Can I say one
He
thing,
didn't do
Gaz?
4 years. He did 3 years.
Gaz,
guys.
on what
3
you
years.
said though, something that resonated with me is the fact that, myself included in this as well, over the last couple of years, we've fallen in love with the dream. I said it after David Moyes got sacked. We fell in love with this dream that he was he was going to succeed Sir Alex Ferguson, the Godfather shite, all that stuff. We fell in love with it. And then with Louis van Gaal, we thought he was the man. He's going to help us bring through our youth. We're going to play total football, all this, that and the other. Now it's come to a point where we are falling behind the rest of the teams. Chelsea haven't had longevity in a manager for a very long time, but they've still been very, very successful. Same can be said for Real Madrid. So now is it a time that Manchester United have to start looking to short-term success like those clubs, because of the simple fact that you don't get longevity like Sir Alex Ferguson anymore. Arsene Wenger might have been at Arsenal for long, but it hasn't been long-term success.
I think we all just don't want to admit it.
Sorry, go.
I think that's it. I think we just don't want to admit that. I just don't think we want to admit that maybe, it's never going to work. But I'm still clinging on to a dream in my head that in about 5 years' time, after Jose's come in and won us a couple of Premier Leagues, that Ryan Giggs will take over and it's going to be 25 more years of dominance. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is that really going to happen? Yeah, wake up. Is that really going to happen in modern football? Does it have a place anymore?
But it's not about. It's not about having one man though, like Fergie or something like that to last for like 20 years. It's about, I mean, we hate the word now, but it's about having a philosophy. That's what Bayern have got. It's what Barca have got. It's what Scholes said we had with Fergie. But unfortunately, I think under Fergie's methods, Fergie had to be the guy there to make it work. So I think we need to instill an identity that's going to last longer. Because otherwise, what's the point of being Man United? We look at our successful history. Yeah, exactly. Like, we can do short-term stuff, but we should be aspiring to do better than that. Because otherwise, what's the point in being Man United? Like, we should do things better. We should try and win things better.
Spot on, Greg. I mean, that is literally the point, isn't it?
Who's the chap that Jose supposedly bringing in with him? Sorry, I don't know enough. Berta. I don't know an awful lot about him. Could he possibly help on that side of things that Jose is not good at?
Well, I think, because he's the director of football. Sorry, not director of football. He runs the transfer business for Atletico to a large degree. And their transfer over the last few years have been great. I mean, they've shipped in guys like Costa Wallo to get rid of guys like Aguero. So they've done really well to buy low, sell high with some really great players, and they're still doing it now. And they're also bringing through a lot of youth as well. So you'd hope that he would kind of fix Mourinho's transfer problem, but it's still Mourinho's kind of values that are going to be at the focus of it all. So I don't know how much he's going to make space for guys like Rashford. That's the issue.
Okay, right, one last point. We'll do this one quickly, and that is youth.
I didn't even get the
Adam.
transfer bit.
Oh, sorry. All right, go on, Howson.
Right, well, I wanted to start on the transfer bit, but I've got to address what Adam was saying about the short-term stuff as well. So, on the transfers, obviously, I don't think there was talk that Martial was bought for Giggs. I thought the talk was that Giggs either scouted him or was the one that asked us to sign him or something along those lines. On the Mourinho transfer side of stuff, some of the players that Mourinho signed, Adebayor, Steve Sidwell, Boularus, Del Orno, Sean Wright-Phillips, he's wasted almost $1 billion in transfers, and he's got about a handful of successful transfers on his record. So as I said, hopefully Berto comes in as a technical director, sporting director, director of football, whatever label you want to throw at it, and sorts that out, because he's got a proven track record of doing that with Atletico. Not only, I mean, whoever deals with the scouting of strikers at Atletico alone deserves a whatever we can throw at them in terms of cash. If we can get that guy in to work alongside Mourinho, and we've got the stuff that's in plan for the academy going forward, and I hope Giggs can still be involved in some capacity in that sense, then I think we're in good shape going forward. And I reject what Gaz says about the mess that we're in currently going forward, that we need to immediately fix it and look short-term only. And I reject what Adam says about Chelsea being hyper-successful in the recent years. I think Chelsea have massively underperformed, and I think the reason that they've underperformed is there is zero stability at the club, and they're constantly looking for short-term. And they have to almost rebuild the club every 18 months when they sack a new manager. So I would rather spend a couple of years in the wilderness while we build for a strong future. Because if you look at our side right now, we've got, if we manage to keep hold of him, David De Gea, one of the best keepers in the world. We've got Marshall, who will be one of the best number 9s in the world. We've got a thriving academy that's just on the brink of breaking into the team. We've got Memphis, who's young. Schneiderlin, who's young.
Shaw.
Smalling is still very young. Shaw.
Luke Shaw.
Smalling ain't very young.
We've got an incredibly young...
All right, by the way, Howson.
Okay.
Howson, before you ramble on, by the way, I didn't say we have to go the way of Chelsea.
Oh, hang on,
said,
can I please finish?
should we?
Can I please
and
finish?
Sam's getting wound up.
Can I please finish? Right.
Sam's getting wound up.
So,
at the
Chelsea,
back.
I don't think have been successful. And I don't think there's many teams that are being successful. Yes, nowhere around the world is anyone having a 25-year manager with a reign like Sir Alex Ferguson. And I doubt that will ever be repeated. But that doesn't mean that's not what you should strive to have. I would rather us put the foundations in and have long-term success. I don't think City have been very successful in recent years, but you know what? They've been planning for success. They're not reactive to, that didn't work, sack him, that didn't work, sack him, that didn't work, sack him. They've got a long-term plan. I want to see us have a long-term plan for success and work to it, rather than just being like Roman Abramovich, where, Real Madrid, we didn't win the Champions League, laid us. We didn't win that, laid us. I would rather see us... I'm quite happy for us not to be successful and not even be in the Champions League for a few years if I know that we're putting in absolute cast iron, solid work, bringing in unbelievable players for the future that will guarantee us 5 or 6 years of continued...
All right, shut up!
We can't go on forever, boys. So we're going to wrap this up incredibly quickly. A small word on each person about youth. Adam.
If Jose does come in, I hope, like these guys have said, we have someone there to enable Jose Mourinho to use the youth players that we've got, because we have some fantastic youth players coming through. The likes of Fosu Mensah, who I think Jose Mourinho would love, by the way, coming through. Andreas Pereira. These kind of players need to be pushed down into our first team from next season. So I hope we've got a manager that, if it is Jose, I hope he's a manager that does that.
Okay, Howson.
We've got a lot of very talented youth at the team, at the club at the moment, and a lot of them deserve opportunities in the first team. Some more than they're getting. I'm surprised at the emergence of some as well. Rashford's been almost a complete shock. I want to see whoever comes in sit with our heritage and our history, because that's what makes Manchester United different. If we're not promoting youth and local players, then what does the Manchester mean on the badge?
Okay, Gaz.
Well,
I
George
think
Best was from Ireland.
that if Jose Mourinho comes to United, and I'm not sure whether this is a thing that could happen, but I think that there'd be certain things in his contract based on the fact that a lot of people on the board, a lot of people at United have the reservations about him for the same reasons that a lot of you guys have mentioned, you know, about him not playing youth, about him not adhering to our history and our culture. And I think he'd have certain things in his contracts, including the youth, and not to just come in and bin off a load of youngsters. I also think that there's no way he'd not play youngsters if they're good enough. He wouldn't just not play them if it's a detriment to the team. And I think that there are youngsters in our team who are good enough, and there are youngsters in our team who the potential is so obvious that he wouldn't just ignore it. So I think that the likes of Rashford, Marshall would be okay under Jose Mourinho. I do think he'd go out and buy short-term quality as well. But at the end of the day, we do kind of need that, because it's just going to make those young players better.
Okay, say youngsters more. Thanks, Gary. Greg.
I get what Gaz is saying about, could have things in the contract, but I don't think the way of having a youth system is forcing some quotas on someone to try and fill them. Let's say, Mourinho, you've got a blood 5 youngsters a season. You might do that when it doesn't matter. You can't force someone to, when it really matters to make a switch in a game, send a youth player on rather than a £60 million signing he's made in the summer from Mendes or someone like that. I think it's got to come down to the actual values of the manager. And from what we've seen throughout his entire career, Mourinho doesn't have those values, and it's very difficult for someone to change the habit of a lifetime, which is what Mourinho will have to do to become the manager that Man United fans really want him to be. I mean, you look at what happened at Real Madrid. You're right. If the players are good enough, he'll play them like Varane or Zuma at Chelsea, and someone like Fosu Mensah might be that kind of player. But at Real Madrid, he also sold Dani Carvajal. He left Real Madrid for Bayer Leverkusen. Real Madrid, once Mourinho had gone, they went and signed him straight back again because they obviously wanted him to be in the team, and Mourinho just shipped him out. So I don't think the problem is the average players that they're not average, but they're just not the superstar youngsters. They're the ones that we need to keep. They're the ones that are going to carry the team forward. They're going to be without trying to dismiss his Lenko, they're going to be the next Nicky Butts. They're going to be the guys that are going to be doing the work on the pitch. They're not just the headliners. The ones below that. They're the ones that we should be filling the team with as well. And I don't know. I can just see Mourinho coming in, and the whole kind of the ethos of this young youthful side is just not happening anymore.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Right, this is it then, boys. One answer. You first, Adam McKola. Mourinho or Giggs? No, just the name.
I think he will embrace the club because he loves the club, and he cried when he never got the job last time. Yes, he did, Chelsea fans. He cried like a bitch. Jose.
Okay, Howson, just the name.
I would rather, you're not just getting a name. I would rather we did a bit of due diligence and did an interview process and spoke to 5 or 6 different candidates rather than just anointing someone. But out of the two
we're
choices,
not actually
it has
appointing
to be
them.
Mourinho.
Okay, Gaz.
You're not getting just a name from me either.
Shut up.
Giggs is going to take over one day, but for the time being, look, we've been in the wilderness too long. I'm not sure whether this makes me some glory hunter or what. Not really asked, to be honest. I want to see Man United win the league. I want to see Man United back at the top again as soon as possible. I think bring Jose in now. But
you just say Mourinho. You just said Mourinho at the beginning.
Giggs in the future.
Greg.
The time is not right for Ryan Giggs, but Mourinho is not right for United, so Ryan Giggs.
Okay, oh nice, I enjoyed that. Not that my opinion is worth anything. I think it comes down to a choice between looking at what is successful, i.e. if you sign Mourinho, then he'll buy players, we'll spend some money, and we'll probably win some trophies and we'll all contend, he gets a lot of points. Or the other is, in my head, this magical dream in which the man who has played the most times for Manchester United, somebody I spent my entire life watching, running down that left wing, then taking over the club and potentially winning stuff. And ultimately, none of it's my money. I only support Manchester United because of the way they make me feel. And the possibility of this dream being a reality means I pick it every time. Even if it's wrong, even if it sends us backwards 2 years. The chasing the dream to me is worth more than going, just give Mourinho some money and we'll win some things.
Sam, I'd much rather
Too
do
something that could be magic. That's the whole point of football, isn't it? That's why it's a beautiful game. Is the possibility of something amazing happening.
But then, Sam,
otherwise, what's the point?
Sam,
if you're Manchester City, what connection do you have with what's happening at your club right now?
Sam, what if this time next year we're doing...
I was about to say...
Gigs in or gigs out, guys? What do you think?
Well, fine, but it didn't work. But at least we chased it. At least we went for the dream.
But what if we
At least we tried.
But that's what I'm scared of, having to sack this man that we all love.
It's his legacy.
Because he's messed up.
It's his legacy, but it's not for you to be scared and worried about his legacy. That's for him to worry about. And if he's willing to put it on the line, I want to follow that dream and see where it goes, because that could be amazing.
You know what, Sam?
Okay?
Give it Giggsy to the end of the season.
We are going to finish right now. Get your opinions in below. We'd love to know what you think. It's very interesting. There's loads of points from the guys. Hope you could digest it all. We will see you next time. Subscribe to Full Time Devils. Bye.
Jose Mourinho.
Welcome to the greatest generation-defying debate since Frost versus Nixon. We are going to discuss the 35 Manchester United players that have appeared in the first team this season, and the guys will take it in turns to name their ideal 11